It's afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. And now here's your apologetic and sheepish host, voice of... We interrupt this program to give you a special news bulletin. President Biden actually did something right. And now back to your previous program. Doom. I don't know what that interruption was about, but I, have to say that I will give credit where credit is due. It's September 11th, and it's the afternoon, and most people are commemorating the destruction of the people that are running the show right now, the destruction by them. But it's everywhere, and I can talk about that, maybe try to come from a different perspective. I don't know how, but the blow-by-blow, and it's been a long time now, 20 years, so people are there's more information, there's more things, there's a bit of healing and scar tissue, so, they can kind of dig deep into the whole thing. When it first happened, people didn't make documentaries right away. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about my embarrassment because, I won't say embarrassment. Petri Dish is still an idiot, but I don't want to come off like I disagree with everything he does, because credit has to be given where it's due, and if I do that, then maybe I'm more credible, because I'm not a knee-jerk, ad hominem, hate the guy, he can't do anything right ever, like other people were with the last president, and by last I mean last. And he's not out of the woods, but I, have to agree with his speech on the vaccinations. I mean, everybody has to be vaccinated. I agree with him. It's an effective means of treating COVID-19, which is ravaging this country. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to, have total herd immunity. I mean, just because 80 million people, which is 1/4 of the population or so, haven't been given the vaccine, I thought the goal was 75% anyway for herd immunity, and then we'd be fine. But I guess it's the children, and I agree. The children have to be saved. We have to save lives. And people who aren't being vaccinated are not saving lives. They're killing people right and left. And the media is going up in arms because Petri Dish is getting a little bit too draconian with his edicts and his plans, and if we can only get everything under the aegis of the government, then I can control everybody and say nobody will work unless they have the vax, which would be a perfect system. But, it's always, they call him Biden, but they say he's going too far with people's rights and freedom, and when he says things like, it's not a question of freedom or personal choice anymore, it's a question of saving people's lives, then, they get a little bit uptight because they think maybe that's too much power and he's overreaching, as they say, over and over and over. I don't think he's overreaching at all, for one thing, but to get back to them, then they always follow it up with, but I've been vaccinated and I believe in the vaccine, and I think it's an effective means to control the symptoms of COVID-19. And I agree with them, but I think that they should get on board with Petri Dish on this one, because there's a lot of work to be done if you really want to get everybody immunized. That 80 million is causing a big ruckus because, first of all, people are wondering if maybe those 80 are rebels, or if they're just ignorant, or maybe they're just people out in the rural areas, or maybe they're underprivileged people in the inner city that can't find their way to the clinic to get the vaccine, and it's all racist. I really don't know why the 80 million aren't getting it. But I do know that I've seen venues all over the place that say, attendees must be vaccinated. Now, I don't know what, my card is just a little postcard, and it's got a stamp on it and a date with a couple shots. So I'm looking at my card, it's like, I don't really want to carry this around for the rest of my life, but I mean, do they want vaccinated only? And if they do, how are they going to prove it? So it's obvious they need to get some organization, and you need a federal national vaccination ID. And it's perfect because you can have a chip in there, and you can have your whole vaccination record on there, and then all the boosters you get, because you never know if there's going to be more variants, and are they really sure that one variant won't be, resistant to the original vaccine that we got? So you need a card, and they could really streamline it by having your whole medical history on there, and then when you go to any new doctor, they say, give me your card, and it's like, here, and it's like, good, we have it all on the computer now. It's so much better than filling out forms. That's so archaic. And I think that Petri was right about that the the unvaccinated are killing the vaccinated by not getting vaccinated. And I know the vaccination is very effective, but there's a small percentage of guests that are getting infected from the people that are unvaccinated. It gets confusing, vax, unvax. But point being is Petri, they say he's callous, they say he has no heart, they say he's absolutely an evil, malevolent, satanic entity, but, once in a while he shows compassion, because it's like through tough love, he chastises the 80 million for being heartless killers, but at the same time he cares about them, because he's saying the hospitals are filling up with COVID cases of mostly unvaccinated people. So even though he kind of wants to force everyone to get the shot, and I think they should, he cares about them. He cares about them even if they're killing each other. And I think if they're stupid enough to not be vaccinated, then, it's Darwinian. I mean, I hate to be, callous, but the stupid people, if they were gone from the planet, then, And these conspiracy theorists, all they want to do is just stir up things and scare people, And it's always so ridiculous. It's, what, the messenger ribonucleic acid, clings to the ACE2 platelets and creates protein spikes. That's so much bullshit. No one's going to get thrombocytopenia. I mean, all the side effects have been documented. And you got to realize that if you give tens of millions of people a experimental, vaccination that is free from liability and has no guarantee, then out of tens of millions, a few thousand or 100 are going to have severe reactions. That happens with aspirin. That happens with, Tylenol. So, and, I want to have more children get the vaccine. I want them to get the vaccine as soon as possible after they're born. And I don't see what the big deal is about pregnant women getting a vaccine that has a messenger RNA in it, because everybody knows what it's going to do, and it's going to help. It's a very effective vaccination. So I get sick of these conspiracy theories. And, it might come to a day where you're going to probably get a booster every year, because there's variants that keep coming, and they might have to change the formula a bit for different variants, just like they did with the flu. I think I'm all for that. I think that's great, because they always had a different flu shot each year, depending on which flu was going to be prevalent. So they changed it. So every year, a booster, because you really can't get too much of a good thing. You cannot get too many lymphocytes. You cannot be immunized too much. You cannot. I mean, even if those messenger RNAs did create spikes, which created waste, which triggered the antibodies, and it does it over and over again. You can't have too many antibodies. The more, the merrier. That's the way I look at it. So I wish those 80 million would get with it. And if they don't, I think they will have to have the national, they need the national ID anyway for the vaccinations, because if you're not going to be able to get into football games, what are they going to do? 50,000 people, let's see your vaccination card. Well, I didn't bring it with me. Well, okay, go ahead. You're either going to have proof or not. You can't just say vaccinated only and we're going to go on the honor system, because the people that wouldn't get vaccinated have no honor. It's obvious. They're killing people right and left. Hospitals are full of people with pneumonia that was gotten from a byproduct of the COVID. They're dying all over the place. So I don't want to hear any more about this immune dependence enhancement of disease. That's like a fair, flying saucers and, being abducted by aliens. Don't come up with those cockamamie things. You can't have too many antibodies. You can't. So, and I don't want to hear about mitochondria. I don't want to hear about that either. And I don't want to hear about thrombosis, or I don't want to hear about cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, because just because you can get blood clots in your brain from the spikes being created, everybody knows the messenger RNA does not last long. It's very temporary. It's only the spikes that people keep talking about, like, there's some stupid thing like Hunter Biden is corrupt and all these other conspiracy theories that people come up with. So, get the boosters, as many as you can, and I hope they come up with that national ID. And when they do, then the non-vaxxers can be in their own communities. We will have grocery stores and restaurants for normal people, and then they will have their co-ops in their restaurants, and I'm sure life will be good for them. Business will get slower and slower because they'll be dying right and left, because there's a lot of variants coming. So those 80 million, I just hope that Petri Dish can somehow find the wherewithal and the sentience, the coherence to really get tough, because I think if he just get those 80 million to get the vaccine, then that whole virus will disappear off the face of the earth. And I'm sure the variants will be taken care of. So don't worry about thrombosis, and don't worry about myocarditis, because those are anecdotal things, So get the vax, as that guy in the NIH says. Get the vax. I agree with him. He's a credible person. And now that the FDA has approved it, there's no reason why people who hesitated to get the vaccination shouldn't get it right away. They should go today and get it. They'll be saving lives. So that might be the last time I ever agree with Petri Dish. And that's probably the last I'm going to talk about this subject, because it may be controversial. I think those non-vaxxers are going to not like being ostracized and not like having to use their own restaurants and grocery stores and separate bathrooms. So there could be a little bit of trouble. So the sooner they force everybody to do it somehow, the better. Public pressure will help. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you for listening. Good afternoon.